Hello and welcome to Helping Other People Excel, or HOPE as I like to call it. That's our acronym, and we'd like to spend a little time with you now in this next half hour to give you some hope and some encouragement, bring hope into your life for today and also for the future. And we thank you for having us into your homes, and hope you'll get something good from what we have to share today. So before I get started, I'd love to thank WCET TV for having us on their fine radio station, television station. Guess it's not radio. And we appreciate all the fine work of the engineering staff that's back there, all the editing and so on that they do to make our show a success. So, and we'd like to thank Heaven is Our Home, Pastor Gary Myers, for helping us get this spot and so we could share with you. Then a couple of our sponsors. We have Pamper Me Naturally, natural soaps, lotions, and treats for the skin. In addition to that, we have they have essential oils and a lot of good things. That's all natural. And they say if your body could speak, it'd say "Pamper Me Naturally." So you can find them at pampermenaturally.com. Also, their fine products are carried at Perry's Place in Cedar Springs for fine herbs, teas, and more. 90 North Main, Cedar Springs, Michigan. And Perry carries a lot of things in addition to that, the soaps and lotions that come from Pamper Me Naturally, but he also carries, they do massage therapy and energy work and so on there. So good little store there. They got a lot of good things. So visit them and tell them I sent you. That'd be nice. I always start my show out every time with a little story from an unknown monk in 1100 AD. And it's about I wanted to change the world. And it says, when I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. And I worked real hard at that, but I soon discovered that I had no success at changing the world. So I thought, well, okay, I'll change my country. And I'm paraphrasing here. So I spent a lot of time trying to change my country, and I worked real hard at that, but didn't seem to have much success with that either. I was just one guy. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll change my town. And so I tried to work on my town, and I spent a lot of time there and realized that I wasn't having much success there. So in my older age, I decided maybe I'd try and change my family. And of course, you know how kids are. We all try to change our family and get them going in the right direction. And I just didn't seem to have any success with that. So finally, in my older age, I decided that I was going to change myself. And in changing myself, I realized if I would have changed myself originally, that I too then would change my family, and then my family would go out and change my community, my town, and then the people of my town would go around and change the country, and ultimately we would then change the world. So the monk was trying to say that change begins in us, it begins in our hearts, and when we change ourselves, a little saying that I really like is when we change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I'm finding that to be so true. If we just change our perspective and we look at things a little differently, we like to call it reframing. And when we reframe our thoughts, we reframe and we say, well, I really don't like that. Instead, we say, well, I really like this about that. May not like everything about it, but, maybe lilacs, for example. I mean, it's hard to find things you don't like about lilacs, but they're big bushes and whatever. But when you find a bad thing or you find something you don't like, if you reframe it a little bit, you'll find that you can change the way you look at that thing. Heavy traffic, you look at that and say, man, I really hate being stuck in this bad traffic. But then if you turn on a good CD or something and you're learning something, then you can say to yourself, well, I'm glad I'm stuck in this traffic because I really got to listen to some good stuff. And so it's just a matter of reframing our thoughts and how we look at things. And then we'll find that the things we look at changes. The traffic jams won't be as long. They won't seem as long because we've been enjoying ourselves. We've made the most of it, So we also want to do that in every area of our life. And I encourage you to try and put that into practice because like so many things, practice makes perfect. And so if you keep working at it, sooner or later, you'll just automatically do that. And you'll find that indeed you've changed the world, which is really an amazing thing. So last week, we kind of had a rerun, I think, last week. But other than that, the week before that, we talked about Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret. And he said in that, we become what we think about most of the time. And he starts out that talk. It's a YouTube video. If you want to go there and look it up, you can find it under Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret. I encourage you to watch it. It's a great video. I can't tell you how many times I've watched it. I've lost count. But, you know, I constantly watch it again. It refreshes my thinking. It refreshes the ideas that are in there in my heart and in my mind. And like so many things, when we want to change a habit, we have to really work on putting away the old habit and practicing a new one. And so that practice makes perfect. But he starts out his video and said, somebody had asked a famous man, well, what's wrong with men today? And after thinking about it for a little bit, the man said, well, you know, men just don't think. And so he wanted to talk to us about that, and that's where the strangest secret comes in. And I know that you'll be blessed by his video as I was, and I encourage you to watch it as often as possible, because it too will then ingrain those thoughts into your heart. But he talked about how we become what we think about most of the time. And he made the analogy of our brains, our minds being like a field. And it doesn't matter what you plant in the field. You can plant tomatoes, or you can plant corn, or you can plant a deadly poison. And it doesn't matter, because the field doesn't care what you plant. It will return to you whatever it is you plant in multiplied amounts. If you put in tomatoes, it'll return a whole bunch of tomatoes for you from one tiny little seed. If you plant trees, you'll get trees. If you somebody once said that you can mix up a nice chocolate cake batter and put it in the oven, but you're not going to get a cherry pie out. So whatever it is you plant, and the Bible is full of that as well. It says that whatsoever you sow, that will you also reap. And so we talked about, if you aren't happy with the results in your life, if you're not happy with the way things are going for you, then maybe you should step back and take a look at what it is you're planting in your mind, and plant something different. Plant some things that are positive, and think positively about the things. I've been reading recently a book called Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill, and I read this book originally years ago, and kind of forgot about it, and I've been rereading it again. And in there was a poem that he talked about, and it said, I bargained with life for a penny, and life gave me nothing more. However, I begged at evening when I counted my scanty store. For life is a just employer, it'll give you what you ask. But once you bear the contract, then you must bear the task. I bargained with life for a penny, only to learn dismayed that whatever wage I would have asked of life, life would have willingly paid. And the reality of that poem really sunk into me and really ministered to my heart, and I hope it does to you as well. But it doesn't matter what we plant. Whatever it is we plant, we'll get back in spades. We'll get back in abundance. And the Bible says, if you cast your bread upon the water, it'll return to you. So many things in the Bible. It talks about reaping what we sow. And so if you're unhappy with the things that you're harvesting in your life and where you're going and where it seems to be leading you, then it's time to plant some new things and to think some new thoughts and to learn some new ideas. And again, Earl Nightingale's video will help you with a lot of that and inspire you with that. It is essential for you to encourage the positive emotions as dominating forces in your mind and discourage and eliminate the negative ones. If you plant those negative seeds, that's what's going to grow. And as that grows, you'll reap negativity. You'll reap bad things. The results in your life won't be satisfactory. If you plant good things in your mind, then you'll reap good things. And that's what they were saying there. A mind dominated by positive emotions becomes a favorable abode for the state of mind known as faith. A mind so dominated may at will give the subconscious mind instructions which it will accept and act upon immediately. That reminds me of another great book that I've read and often read is The Ant and the Elephant. And in that book, Vince Placenti talks about how our conscious mind is like a little ant and our subconscious mind is like an elephant. And if you think about the power that a little ant has, it's very mighty and strong in comparison to its size, but it can't move anything near as big or do as much work nearly as much as an elephant can. And so what we need to realize then is that our subconscious mind has more power than our conscious mind. And in that book he talks about how many neurons are fired by our conscious thought, and it pales in comparison to the amount of neurons that are fired when our subconscious mind gets excited about something. And I'm sure you can think of times when you got really excited about something in your life. You really wanted something really bad, a trip to Cancun, a brand new car maybe, or that new truck. But whatever it is, when you got excited about things, then stuff seemed to happen and you figured out a way to make it happen. And there is a good example of, and there's many more in the book, The Ant and the Elephant. Incidentally, you can find these books that I'm talking about on my website. You'll see a posting for it here on your screen, and you can go there, and I've made them available to purchase online. You know, when you trigger that subconscious emotion, something happens. Something occurs in maybe some other dimension. I don't know exactly, but the power is put into force to accomplish what you've set in your mind. And the elephant becomes unleashed. He becomes turned loose on what it is that you want. And if you can get your little ant to communicate with that elephant and get him excited, you can move mountains. And the Bible talks about that, that faith can move mountains, you know. And so, you know, I encourage you to learn that relationship between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind, and think on those things. The Bible says that whatsoever things are pure, and whatsoever things are good, and whatsoever things are of good report, think on these things. It also says in another spot, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And so, you know, it's important to really cultivate and encourage good thoughts. Dreaming is the seed. We talked about that, what we think and what we plant. That dreaming or thinking about things, that's the seed that we plant in our mind. But dreaming is not enough. Many people dream and are never successful. You know, and you can think about probably over the period of your lifetime of various people that you might have known over the years that, oh, they love to sit around and dream. They dreamed about a lot of things, you know, but they never really seemed to accomplish anything. And so we have good examples of that, where dreaming is not enough. Many people dream but are never successful. When we dream, we have to add that desire, and desire stems from dreaming. So as we dream, we start to get that desire that triggers that elephant, that makes that little elephant charge, that big elephant charge, and accomplish the things that need to be done. That desire is basically faith. It's belief, and it's believing that you can. It's believing that it can happen. It can happen to you. And so it's really important that we develop that faith, and we develop that, of course, by dreaming, but not only just dreaming, but by visualizing yourself in or with what it is you're dreaming about. And so we maybe it's a new car that you'd like to get, you know, and you've looked at some and you've dreamed about them, and you saw it in the magazine and on TV, and you said, wow, I'd really like to have a nice new red Tesla. Of course, that's my personal preference. But you know, the dreaming starts it, and then the next thing you know, you're saying, you know, I really should go test drive one of those. And so you run down and you make an appointment and you get a test drive, and you test drive that Tesla, and you think, boy, that thing is really a sweet car, and I really like the red, and man, I can see myself in it now because I just drove it, I experienced it, I felt it, I made that connection. And so that builds the desire and the faith and the belief. And then you couple that with knowledge, of course. You've learned about the car, you've learned about the features. Maybe it's a boat, whatever. Maybe a new home, or maybe you want to move to another country or do some traveling. All of those things, you couple that with knowledge of that. You tend to, when you get excited about something that you want, you tend to do a little research, and you dig out the specs on it and say, wow, that's 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds. That's amazing. Man, that's like a McLaren F1. And it truly does that, which is why I like that car. But so you couple that with knowledge, and that adds to the acquisition, that adds to the elephant's charge, that adds to the time and when you get to acquire that. And so you couple that with knowledge, but knowledge is not enough. Many people have much education, and yet are never successful? How many people can we think about that went to college and they went for 2 years, maybe they went for 4 years, they got a degree, and now they're working in a job that degree doesn't even have anything to do with the job they're working at, you know? And so, you know, knowledge is good, but it's not enough. You need to couple that with the previous things of dreaming and faith. But then still, that's not enough. How many people do we know that have great educations and still are not successful? You got to couple it with some action. You know, the Bible says faith without works is dead. It's just absolutely of no value. If you can have all the faith in the world, but if you don't put your feet to the pavement, if you don't get something done with it, if you don't start working it, it's not going to ever happen for you. And so action is another important thing. You know, you really got to do that to complete your goal and to accomplish the things that you're looking for. But action is not enough. Many people work very hard and are never successful. So, you know, it's kind of goes back to that thing of working hard, working smart, you know. It's good to work smart. But still, hard work is not enough. I don't know, you've probably heard the saying, you probably were told just like me. You know, you work hard, get good grades, go to school, and that's going to bring you the American dream, but it never really does. Those things are not enough. And so now you've got to couple all of that, put it all together. We've got the recipe for success here. If you put that all together and you mix it up real good, the last ingredient, but the most important, is attitude. You got to have a good attitude. You got to have that will to win. You got to have that desire to win. You've got to know that you can do it. You've got to know it right here in your heart. It's not enough to know it in your head. It's got to get somehow transferred from here to there, and that's, I think, that communication between the ant and the elephant again, you know. And so here we find that these ingredients that we need to mix together for success all need to be planted in our mind, like Earl Nightingale said, and then we wind up reaping what it is that we sowed, what the rewards of our success or our dreams are. So attitude makes a difference. Attitude is the winning key, but attitude by itself is not enough. I'm sure you know many people who have attitude, but are they successful? Many of them are not. They just have attitude. But that's because they don't have all the other things to go with it. They just have attitude. And sadly, you know, they think that that's good enough, but then again, if they were to look at what they're reaping, then they'd realize that what they sowed was not of any value. It was ineffective and really not what they wanted, you know. So we need to put all those things together. The things are, once again, dreaming. Thinking is the seed. We got to plant that first. And then that from that builds desire and faith and belief. And then we couple that with knowledge or education. And then we put some action to it and make things happen. Get out and build it. Do what it is that we've got to do to be successful. And then we couple that with a good attitude. And that is a recipe for success. Now, one of the things that's neat about what we plant in our mind, as Earl Nightingale talked about, is that as we plant those things and as we dwell on those, as we water them and fertilize them and pamper them like we would any garden, we may not have any idea how we're going to ever accomplish those things. Let's say, for example, that I'd love to go live in Bora Bora, which I would, at least for a little while. It's beautiful there. I don't know if you've ever seen the beautiful clear water and the little huts that they have that are right out on the island on stilts, and you wake up in the morning and jump off the deck and into the water and take a nice swim, and oh, it's just gorgeous, and the temperatures are warm and there's a tropical breeze all the time that cools you off, and it's just a beautiful place. But anyway, let's say you wanted to live in Belize, and so you really don't know how you're going to get there. I don't know how I get there. I'm sure I could go for a vacation, but you know, what if you wanted to live there all the time? You know, how much money would that take? And you know, how is that ever going to be accomplished? Maybe you want to be president of the United States. God knows we could use a good one. Not that there's anything wrong with the one we got, but you know, I'm just saying. But anyway, you know, maybe your goals are not quite that large. Maybe you're like to be the president of your company, or maybe you just want to be mayor of your town, or maybe you just want to be a good leader of your household and be a good father or mother. But if you plant those things in your mind, or Earl Nightingale says that eventually your mind will figure out a way. If you continue to water that and nurture that and pamper it, that little flame begins to fan with some air, and you add a little more fuel, and the next thing you know, your mind starts coming up with, gotta not keep that in front of my face, your mind starts coming up with ways for it to happen. And something that you may have thought was never possible, it was just a dream. When you nurture that and you feed that and you get it going, Earl Nightingale says that not only is it gonna grow, it's guaranteed to grow, because that's how it is. When you plant strawberries, you get strawberries in abundance. You don't just get one strawberry, you don't get a half a strawberry, you don't get some small strawberry seeds, although you do get those too. But what you wind up getting is a field full of strawberries, because that's what you planted. And so, like the laws of nature, he says, the laws of our mind are the same. Whatever we plant there is going to grow. And so I encourage you, again, to plant good seeds in your mind and think about good things. As the Bible said, whatsoever things are pure and clean and of good report, whatever the desires of your heart is, the Bible says that God desires to give us the desires of our hearts. He longs for that, like a father longs to give his child good things. If a son asks for bread, does he give him a stone? No, he wants to give them good things. And so our Heavenly Father wants to give to us good things as well. If we just plant those things in our mind and we just work the laws of nature, then we're guaranteed to get a harvest of those things, whatever it is we plant. So be careful what it is that you plant, and take a little time maybe and sit down and think about it and say, okay, what do I want in my life? Don't just plant willy-nilly. Just don't scatter it out there. If you look at most people's gardens, they're carefully organized. The tomatoes are here, the onions are there, the corn is over here where it gets good sun. And you want to plant good things in your mind, but you want to take a little time and structure that out and plant them in such a way that it's going to return a good, nice, orderly return of the things that you really want in life mostly. So anyway, Zig Ziglar says, your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude. And so, in talking about attitude makes a difference. I think that's what he's trying to emphasize there, is that your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude. So not your smarts. If you want to get more in life, if you want to get higher in life, having a good attitude. Frank Betcher talks about in his book, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success. He talks about how just enthusiasm and excitement is what gave him a 700% pay raise. 700%, that's huge. But he decided to just go into work and be excited and be enthusiastic. And as a result, he got more money. So we're getting to the end of our show today, and I sure appreciate the time that you let me spend in your house today. Enjoyed spending that with you. I always try and think of good things to encourage you and uplift you and help you further along in your progress in life, give you hope. There's so much hope available. There's so much that you can be. There's so much more that you can have. You don't have to settle for where you're at in life. You don't have to be on this hamster wheel you're on. I've spent a lot of time in my last years, previous years, younger years. I'm still pretty young. But I've spent a lot of time on that hamster wheel. And, I know that feeling. I can relate with you on that because I did it for years. I'd wake up in the morning and put one foot on the floor and slowly drag myself out of bed, just not wanting to get on with the day because I knew that it was going to be a long, stressful, hard day again. And, it was just difficult. And so I can relate to those that are there in that spot. But I found hope. I found encouragement. I found new thinking to plant in my mind. I found new ideas, and these guys with these books that I've talked about, Frank Betcher, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Sales, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Boy, there's so many, and I just, off the top of my head, I'm losing it. But feel free to visit my website and browse through the shop section there, and you'll find a lot of good books and good CDs of great information to help encourage you. CDs are so good because as you listen to them, we call it net learning, no extra time, NET. So when you're driving down the road, you can throw in a CD in your CD player or on your MP3 and put the headphones in while you're mowing the lawn, and it takes no extra time. You're still getting stuff done that you were already doing, but you still get to learn great things that can truly change your life and help you live the life you've always wanted. So I encourage you to go there and take a look. We're asking fair prices for the things. Most of the stuff is cheaper than you'd find at your favorite bookstore or music store. And so if you get a chance and can look there, we just want you to have that information, because I know how it's changed my life, and I know it can do the same for you. And in the meantime, I want to encourage you more. Keep moving forward, keep looking up, keep planting those positive thoughts, and make sure that you water them and feed them good, because that's what will grow in your life. So as the end of my show, I always like to talk about a little quote from Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But you can reach me anytime if you have questions or want some additional information. Phone number's on your screen, but 616-799-0517, and that'll call me. I'm happy to answer any questions I can and maybe help direct you in some good ways if I can encourage you then or whatever. I'm happy to do that. My email address is jim.pate, that's P as in Peter, A-T-E. I always say like pate without the liver. But jim.pate@gmail.com. And then, of course, our website here is on the screen. It's tinyurl, tinyurl.com/Jim's Hope, JIMSHOPE. So, go there and check out the books and CDs that we've got. Hopefully something there will grab your attention. And boy, I just want to really help you get ahead, get off that hamster wheel and move forward in life. And, it's not, Jim Rohn says, it's not what a book costs, but what it'll cost if you don't read it. And I find that so true, that, if we don't read these books, leaders are readers, they say, and if we don't read these books, we're missing out on such good information, because a lot of this stuff is not available on television or in the mainstream media, newspapers or whatever, but so many of these good books, the older ones especially, seem to have a lot of this good information that we don't get today. So by encouragement and education, we help other people bring hope, H-O-P-E, to you as an individual, families, communities, states, restoring our once great country and hope for the world. Christopher Robin said to Winnie the Pooh, "There is something you must always remember. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think." So give yourself some encouragement, give yourself some credit, be positive, be uplifted, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you again for letting us come into your home and be an encouragement to you, and hope something we had here today is a blessing to your heart. God bless you.
Hi, I'm Larry Treese from Healthcare Associates and Community Caregivers. Just like in sports, when it comes to home health care, you need a good team. We offer private duty nursing, Medicare services, and therapies. We're a part of the community too. We want to be there for you. Give us a call. Home health care at its best, 531-9973.